Welcome back! So, it is the start of November, aka the start of the best time of the year, the best month of the year, and that means we have 2 more months left of the year, which is exciting and also crazy. This year flew by, and I want to get a head start at reflecting on this year, especially when it comes to my reading, and I want to check in with myself on where I am, and I want to see what that means for my reading goals for these next 2 months. And I want to look at some books that I've recently purchased and share my reading plans and what I'm currently reading and just have a good time. So this was the journal for the start of 2023 for me. So I don't have a lot of really specific goals for myself. I just like to read for fun. I read what I want to read. I don't read what I don't want to read. Pretty simple. I do set a numerical goal. It's not a really high achieving goal for me. I've been reading pretty consistently for the past 3 years, so I know ballpark what I can do in a year. And I think 2 books a month is pretty standard and pretty normally achievable for me. So that's usually what my goal is, minimum 2 books a month. But I wanted to read 30 books this year, and I actually have already done that with my last book. I reached my goal already for that. I really only had 2 goals for reading this year. One of them was to read 30 books, and the other was to buddy read a book. I have yet to buddy read a book. I have not done that. There is still time, but my hopes aren't high because I'm not really actively seeking it out. So there's still time. But for my 30 books this year, I've already actually completed that. So that's good. Now everything is just bonus, I guess. I think it's just nice to have some achievable baseline goal. And then that way, now anything more I read is extra. So I would like to show you some of the books I've bought this year. Kind of recently, books I've bought this year that I have yet to read that are still on my TBR shelf. Okay. These are all the books that I have purchased somewhat recently, within the second half of the year. Actually, this isn't even all of them. Hang on. Okay. I actually bought this one too. Okay, so these are all the books that I've purchased somewhat recently. I actually don't do a ton of book buying, and when I do, I pretty much am excited to read it. That's why I bought it, and so I pretty much read it right away. But these are all the books that I've bought recently and have not read yet. Actually, that's not true. I'm lying to you. So these 2 books, things have gotten worse since we last spoke, and A Man Called Ove. I have bought both of these pretty recently and have read them. This is the last book I read. This is what got me to my 30 book reading goal. This book is good. I would pick up more by him. So I did enjoy this, and I did cry at 2 points of the book. And then I also read this book. I purchased this book and pretty much read it right away. Read it in 2 days or something. It's a really quick read. This book, this is a collection of 3 stories. Would not recommend to a large audience. And basically, these books that I've purchased recently is my TBR for the rest of this year. Do I plan to get through all of these? No, but these are the books I want to be focusing on finishing out this year. There's nothing that I know of that's being released that I want, but I don't really want to be purchasing more books. I want to focus on these books that I have. I purchased this one several months ago. This is Anna Karenina, Leo Tolstoy. Thought I'd give it a shot. I also have an Emily Bronte. Wuthering Heights just feels like something I have to read. And another classic, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And this one I've shown before in my last Dumas book. This is a biography of Alexandre Dumas, one of my favorite authors, if you're unaware. I'm not a huge fan of nonfiction. I'm really not. I try every once in a while. I've read a couple biographies. Maybe the biography of my favorite author will entice me. And then finally, this is the 7th book in a series that I am reading. The Running Grave by Robert Galbraith. This series is basically a detective mystery series. This is a lot of things, actually, a lot of firsts for me. I don't do a lot of detective stories. I like mystery thrillers and scary books, but I don't do a lot of detectives. So that is new for me. And also, I do not do a lot of series. I don't know what it is. I don't really like being super invested in this long, drawn-out thing, but I am about hip deep in this Cormoran Strike series, and I'm enjoying it. They're not the most earth-shattering, amazing stories ever, but I'm enjoying it a lot. And the romance that is in this is keeping me alive. It's also the only series that I've ever read / am reading that is still coming out. I finished the 6th book earlier this year and had to wait for this to come out. Like, I don't get into a lot of series, and when I do, they've been long done. The Dumas series, those are all published because Dumas is dead. So this is the only detective books that I'm into and series I'm into / series that I'm into that is still not completely published. I don't know what her plan is. I am aware of who Robert Galbraith is. I think I heard the plan with like 13 or something, and that's just I'm too invested to not pick the next ones up. And look at this. This is 900 pages. 900 pages of a detective series. Why? She's just having a good time, and I'm roped into it, and honestly plan on probably reading it next because I'm very excited about it. Also, this one I think is about a cult, which is intriguing. So those are all the books that I've recently purchased / my reading plans for the rest of this year. Like I said, basically my TBR for the rest of the year is just to be picking away at this. Currently, I am reading a classic. This was a gift from my father, and he is patiently waiting for me to get through this book so we can talk about it and watch the movie. But it is Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens, and I am 400 pages into it. It's a deceptively long book. This is 700 pages. The font is tiny and the pages are thin, so it's kind of a deceptively long book. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm a little embarrassed. I've been reading this book for over a month at this point, and that's a long time for me. That's a long time for me to be reading one thing. I just have picked it up, put it down, read other things. But the plan is to finish up Nicholas Nickleby and then probably The Running Grave because I'm excited about that book a lot. But yeah, so that's what I'm reading right now. Those are the books I've bought recently / reading plans for the rest of 2023. It's cramming season for our goals. This is the time of year where it's like, oh crap, I haven't achieved anything that I wanted to achieve this year. But that's all I wanted to talk about right now. I'll see you later. This is a iced gingerbread oat milk chai. And it's very good. Very delicious. It's delicious. Hello. I'm not ready for Christmas though. I don't know what it is. I have been struggling to read this month. Maybe it's a sign that I don't like this book as much as I want to. We're focusing on these. It's not that it's bad. I'm appreciating it for what it is. The language, the storytelling, it is good. But for some reason, I am just picking away at this so slowly. I literally have been reading this for over a month at this point. I started this the end of September. I just need to keep chugging. Along at this. But look at this. Look at these fellows. That guy's terrifying looking. What's happening currently, the brother just came across some people who are actually wanting to help him and see all of his potential and want to provide for him, because this whole section has just been Nicholas and his mom and sister dealing with people who want to portray that they're good but are actually really bad in a multitude of ways, from just being greedy and selfish to abusing children. So Nicholas has finally now come across some brothers who are legit good people and actually want to help him and see his potential and see what good of a guy Nicholas is. Things are starting to look up, but there's still 200 pages left. So something has to happen. There has to be more things going on. Probably my favorite part of this book is Nicholas's relationship to a character named Smike. Smike was a servant at this school that Nicholas was briefly employed at, the school that abuses children, and Nicholas basically rescued Smike because Smike was no exception to the abuse. He's disabled and was definitely taken advantage of and is treated poorly because of that, but Nicholas is just a good guy and looks at him and treats him like he's a human, and Smike recognizes that and just adores Nicholas for it. So that's probably my favorite aspect of the book so far, is just Nicholas's he's very just, he's very moral, and he's very caring and loving for his mother, even though his mother is kind of annoying and not dumb, but just she was being fooled by these guys who were trying to take advantage of her daughter. But Nicholas is still, loving and caring towards her. And of course, he's loving and caring towards his sister, Kate. And he saved Smike basically from an abusive life and treats him like a person. And so I do really appreciate and like those character aspects of Nicholas for sure. So like I said, 200 more pages left to go. And I just need to knock this puppy out. These are all of the books that I have read this year so far, not including the one that I'm currently stuck reading. So this is all of them in absolutely no order, just in an order that had them all stacked nicely and fit on this shelf here. So I'm missing two. Where are those two? Oh, so this is all but two. One of them was my dad's book, so I don't have that one currently. And then the other one was a library book that is back at the library. So this is only 28, but I have read 30. And I've been trying to think what has been my favorite book that I've read this year, and nothing jumped out at me. Nothing really came to mind, which is kind of sad and concerning in terms of new books, because I don't think I can say The Three Musketeers is my favorite book I read this year, since I've read it every year for the past 3 years. I can claim that that's my favorite book, but it's no longer can be my favorite book of the year. And if it is, it must have been a bad reading year. The next thing that comes to mind is The Count of Monte Cristo, but I also feel like that's copping out. I feel like that's not a legit answer either, because I technically have read the abridged version before this, and it's so close to Three Musketeers that I don't know. It just feels like I shouldn't pick this one as my favorite book of the year. But I might have to if nothing else sticks out to me. The only other thing that comes to mind when looking at all the books I read this year is actually, I think this was the second book that I read this year. So at the very beginning of January, I read Ethan Frome. And I just remember being pretty pleasantly surprised at how much I liked this. It's a short story. It's really sad, but I just remember really enjoying this. There's still, at this point, a month and a half to go. And other notable mentions that I don't think I could claim are my favorite, but things that I've enjoyed. I did enjoy Paul Bearer's Club a lot. I thought it was really unique. I've read a couple of Paul Tremblay because he also wrote The House at the Bottom of the Lake, and did he write Pearl as well? Or is that Stephen Graham Jones? I don't remember. Hold on. Everything I just said was wrong. Pearl is not written by Paul Tremblay or Stephen Graham Jones. I'm getting them confused with Josh Mallerman. Josh Mallerman wrote Pearl and The House at the Bottom of the Lake. I haven't read any other Paul Tremblay. The Paul Bearer's Club is the only Paul Tremblay I have ever read. So yeah, very wrong. I'm sorry. Paul Bearer's Club was definitely unique, and I enjoyed it. A Man Called Ove, which I've already pointed out. I read that really pretty recently, so that's fresh in my mind, but I did really enjoy that. It has motivated me to consider picking up more Frederick Bachman. Other notable books that I've read this year that I just have to mention is the Cormoran Strike series. I know I mentioned it earlier in this video just because I'm going to be reading the 7th book this year, but I guess if I had to pick a favorite right now, that series is really up there. And I don't know if that it's not one book. I couldn't pick out one book out of the series that I like right now. I'd have to put some more thought into that in terms of ranking the books in the series. But I would say as a whole, I've been really enjoying the Cormoran Strike series this year. This is the Cormoran Strike series that I've read this year. This is not including the first one. The Cuckoo's Calling is the first one. But I did technically read that last year, at the end of 2022. And I lent that book out, so I don't currently have it right now, but this is all of the Cormoran Strike novels that I read this year in order. And then, like I said, this one is the 7th one that just came out that I have yet to read. And then if I had to pick least favorites of the year so far, it would have to be Death in Her Hands, just because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more interesting, and I just found it boring and slow. And I can appreciate a slow book and an offbeat sort of creepy, because I would say that Paul Bearer's Club is a slow, offbeat, creepy, scary story, but I enjoyed Paul Bearer's Club. Whereas Death in Her Hands, I was bored and hoping it was going to take a step further to make it a little bit more unsettling, but it just never crossed that line. Whereas Paul Bearer's Club was slow and a little bit odd, because it's not like it's paranormal. It's kind of unknown what is actually going on, and that's the same for both Paul Bearer's Club and Death in Her Hand. But Paul Bearer's Club takes it just a little bit across the line, where there is a climax, a action point where you get something to work with. Whereas I feel like Death in Her Hands just is offbeat, slow, and strange, but then it just ends and there's nothing to work with. And it can be done well, but I just thought it was more boring than it was unsettling. But yeah, that's a brief overview of all the things that I've read so far this year. Like I said, we're only halfway through November, so I still have a month and a half left of reading to do, and maybe I'll find an incredible book that I love that'll rearrange my ranking system so far. But yeah, wanted to give you a snapshot of what my year has looked like so far, to start thinking about the end of the year reflections and how I want to go into 2024 with my reading. That is probably going to be it for this one. one. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you're interested, I do have some other book-related content on my channel, so be sure to check that out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Until next time.